Hello and welcome to Neil's Spanish Flybox. I trust you are all well. Now today's dyeing is a Duracell variant. Now I noticed a short while ago when I was tying up some Duracells that there is a health warning. Now I don't know whether that applies to the whole of the world or whether it is just Europe, but there's a health warning on the brown eye stub. Now that is the standard colour, but it occurred to me that some people may not want to use that. Now I'm not a scientist or a doctor, or I have no great knowledge about that type of thing, but it did occur to me that somebody may want to use something different. So I had a look through my spectra dubbings to see if I could find something that was similar. Now whilst this is very similar in colour, it's not the one that proved the most successful when I was fishing. It was the darker colour. Now what I did, I created a mix, which is 50% standard hare's ear, 25% UV hare's ear, and 25% of this spectra dubbing, which is number 417. Okay, let's get straight into the tying. I have in the vise a size 14 nymph hook with a 2.8 silver bead. Now to be fair, all of these all look very similar when they are away from the original. That is the original UV eye stub. And you can see that there are similarities, but some a little more distant than others. So I'm going to tie with some camel coloured thread. This is a 10-0, and we'll just set this 2.8 silver bead. When I was trialling these different colours, whilst they all caught fish at some time, the most productive was the one that I'm about to tie. Now I'm going to tie this down about halfway, trim off, and I'm going to put on some lead wire. And this is 34 gauge, which is quite thin. And this will help get it down to the bottom. Now I'm just going to pull that through to length and bind it down. And I'm going to put a little bit of glue on there. Right, and some neat touching turns back up to the bead. And this fly is what I call the 4 fly, in that you need to tie at least 4. When you're fishing close to the bottom of the river, or on the bottom, when you're trundling along there, you're going to lose some flies. So the 4 fly is one for me, which I start off with, one for the fish that breaks me off, one for the bottom of the river, which inevitably will happen, and one spare. Okay, some people may say, I haven't got the materials and I'm not able to tie that many flies. Well, that's fair enough, but don't just tie up one, because that can be very disappointing when you've lost it. Now for the tail, I'm going to use some coq de lion, and this is a plain badger type coq de lion, but I noticed at the top, at the back here, the feathers are heavily marked. So I'm just going to take off some of these fibres. You need quite a good tail. There's probably about 8 or 10 fibres there. And I'm just going to tie that in behind the lead wire. Have a look at the length, a little bit too long, so I'll pull that back. There. And wind it down to the bend of the hook and trim off the feather close to the lead wire. Now, standard is red wire for the rib, and that's what I'm using. Don't ask me what gauge it is, I've had it for many years and it has no label on it now. So I'll just tie it in. I'm going to pull that back so that it's level with the lead wire as well. We're trying to keep this as even as possible by keeping the materials in line with the balance of the fly. Right, now for this mix that I have produced, just dab that on. I'm sure that there are people that will say there's no need for a variant. The Duracell is the Duracell, it's a successful fly, and we'll carry on using it. That's fine. Just wind that on, tighten it up as you go along. Winding up towards the bead, like so, and wind on the wire. And tie it off. And helicopter off the wire. The standard would be to split the thread and put in the fibres of the CDC. Now, if you're tying up a load of those, that can be a bit tiresome, so I'm just going to tie it in at the tip, one CDC feather, and give it just a couple of turns, depending on how much CDC fibre you want. You can always take it out afterwards and tie it off. And I'm going to trim up both the stalk and the point. Pull back the fibres, tidy up, and I'm going to put on a little bit more of the dubbing for the collar. Don't need a lot. That might be too much, but we'll see. We can always take it off. That is too much, so I'll take that little piece off there. Now, before I tie it off, I'm going to put on some glue on the thread. And tie it off. There you go, and that is the variant finished. Now, the length of these fibres, well, however you want them, but not much longer than the length of the fly to create that movement. Now, as I said, this is only a variant if you want to use something other than the UV ice brown. As I said, this is the standard UV brown that everybody would use, and it just gives you another option. I hope you enjoyed that tying, and please do consider subscribing to the channel. If you're not already subscribed, hit the bell, give it a thumbs up, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.